Hey everybody, welcome to episode 79 of FoundersGyan and thanks for tuning in. Each week we talk to a startup founder on an interesting topic, and this week we are talking to Scott Woodley of Tutora.co.uk. And our topic for the day is crowd-based equity funding for startups. Do check out the show notes over at foundersgyan.com/ep79 for links to all that we talk about on the show. Alright, fasten your seatbelts, we are taking off. Hello, everybody. Today we have a very special guest on the show. He's Scott Woodley, the co-founder and CEO of Tutora. That is tutora.co.uk. It's an online site where you can find tutors. And also, a topic for the day is going to be crowdfunding for startups. This will be part two. In part one, we talked about how to do crowdfunding for startups from a platform perspective, where we had the founder of Catapult featured. That was foundersgyan.com/ep66, where the Catapult is a platform where you can crowdfund. It's like Kickstarter. So we had some advice from the founder of Catapult telling us how to do a successful crowdfunding campaign. Now in part two, we have a site and a founder who's done successful crowdfunding campaigns himself. Woody, as Scott Woodley likes to be called, has successfully raised 150K last year, and they are now in their second raise. Yeah, I think that's a big intro. Woody, thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So, Woody, you did hear about me telling you a little bit about yourself and about your site and your startup. So, is that correct? If yes, could you just elaborate a bit more for our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. So the site's tutora.co.uk. I used to be a primary school teacher here in the UK, and I could see a massive problem that parents were having trying to find a trusted tutor for one-to-one tuition in any subject. So we ended up setting up Tutora 18 months ago. We went through a successful Crowdcube fundraise. We raised 150K for a 10% equity share last year, and we're now on Crowdcube again at crowdcube.com/Tutora, raising another 350K for the business.
All right, excellent. So I'm a little curious on one thing. So why did you choose Crowdcube? I mean, I know there's Kickstarter, I know there's Indiegogo, there's like various other platforms. So why did you choose Crowdcube in the first place?
Yeah, so a lot of the Kickstarter sites that you've mentioned enable companies to get investment for a kind of a material good. Now, Crowdcube instead is an equity crowdfunding platform. So instead of providing a service or a good to the people who invest, we give them an equity share in our business. In the UK, Crowdcube's one of the largest sites doing that. And it was a really natural way for us to go because ultimately the business is something that affects so many families, both here in the UK but also abroad. In the UK, the tuition industry is worth £6 billion, with 1 in 4 children having had tuition at some point. So those just numbers are huge. So obviously there's a massive crowd for us to attract investment from, which is why we decided to go along the crowdfunding route.
All right. So I do kind of get the rationale behind why you chose Crowdcube. It's more of a equity-based investment, which is different from Kickstarter and say Indiegogo and stuff like that. Now,
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your company? What differentiates exactly Tutora versus, let's say, there's so many other sites where you can find tutors online, right? So what differentiates you? What's your number one differentiator?
So I think that it's the fact that we are bringing a new business model to the issue, which allows us to create better matches. We have a an algorithm that effectively, because unlike the two major businesses that started in this platform in the UK, in a space, those guys charge an upfront fee for parents to contact tutors. Now, we just don't think that's really what parents want to do. They ultimately only want to pay once their children or themselves, we cover every age, every subject, are learning. So instead, we have a commission-based model. So parents can message tutors back and forth for free and then ultimately go and book in confidence. But not only that, once they're having lessons, because we offer the complete payment package, so all of the lessons are paid for and booked on our platform, we can see who are the very best tutors out there. We can see who students go on to have lots of lessons with. We get their reviews through the platform, which is really natural because they're always engaging through our platform. And then ultimately that allows us to bring the best tutors to the top of the search results whilst removing those we don't think offer a great service. So effectively, we're able to bring more trust and transparency to the industry, so that when parents come to our site, they not only know that the tutors are great because the information and the data we collected has told us that's the case, they can also then check for themselves by messaging back and forth for free before they go on to book their lessons. So it's a lot more of a streamlined, safe, secure place for students to find the best tutor for them.
Okay, all right, excellent. Thank you so much for that. Now let's get on to the meat of our topic, which is tips around crowdfunding, if I may put it that way.
Yeah.
Now, one of the first questions that comes to me is why did you choose crowdfunding to fund your company or your startup instead of going the traditional route, say through investors or venture capitalists?
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's a couple of issues there. For us, it's the type of business we run. So, as I said, tuition is an issue, and finding a tutor is something that so many families go through. The numbers involved meant that we were a very, very natural fit to go to a crowd. To secure support. We support so many thousands of students here in the UK that we already had a really large base that we knew would kind of back us. But also we knew it was an issue that was applicable to so many other families out there that it was one that was very easy to understand, and therefore going to the crowdfunding site would allow us not only to gain more investment, but also really importantly for us to raise the awareness of how we can help those investors and their kind of families and connections in learning. So it was a great way for us to drive more business to our site. I suppose also it's the amount and where we'd come in the business, the amount we're looking for and where we've got to in the business. We've secured fantastic traction. We're probably the third or fourth largest tuition company in the UK now. And I think in terms of where we're at, we could be profitable very quickly, but we're looking to gain extra funding to become that number one. Now, the amount of funding that we need isn't possibly at the level that most VCs are looking for. We're not looking for a kind of a 2 million investment at this stage. We're looking for £350,000. So that made, again, going to the crowd a really attractive proposition. And also for us, we had that kind of experience last time. Our raise went through for the 150k last April in just 4 days. So we already knew that we could get that support really quite quickly. And similarly, those initial investors that we already had were really keen to reinvest in the company. So for us, it was a great way to bring those all together. The fees involved are relatively low, and we could bring new investors in, which was a really exciting prospect.
Okay, awesome. Now, the other question that I had around this was what type of business is most suited to crowdfunding? Now, I know from your experience, maybe you could talk about crowdfunding for growing the business, or is your advice generic and can be maybe even talk to product-based or services-based companies where they are looking to crowdfund for a product or service, not for equity.
Yes, definitely. I think the first and foremost, it's important that your business and the business model is relatively easy to understand. That's not to say that there's not some fantastically complicated businesses that have been very successful on crowdfunding. It's in my experience, the businesses I see do particularly well on these sites are ones that are applicable to a crowd. They're not incredibly technically driven. They're not new scientific revelations that you'd have to study for a month to be able to understand. They're very much things that people can get involved with very quickly and understand. That's what we think our business is, great for the crowd. I think also alongside that, you should really consider crowdfunding if there's that additional benefit of getting out there to new users. If you're selling to a large base, if you've got a product that you want to push more of, then it's a great opportunity to be able to do that. So I think those are the additional benefits that you see through crowdfunding over potentially more of the traditional routes where you're going down a closed route speaking to individual investors.
So excellent, Woody. So thanks so much for that. Now, I do have a little bit of a question around, say, investor money versus crowdfunding money. Now, when we go via the traditional model of, say, investing via investors or VCs, then there are some additional benefits. For example, you could get into you could get in touch with some really big mentors. The VCs would have connects in the industry that could help you with growing your business and growing your company, and also mentoring you. But that is kind of absent in a crowdfunding model, right? So how would startups overcome that if we go the crowdfunding route?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily absent. I think it depends on how you approach the crowdfunding scheme and the initiative. In our case, we've gone out there and found and targeted specific investors who we'd really like to work with. And in doing so, that enables us to potentially bring on board advisors and people with specialist knowledge and skills to serve as those mentors. At the moment, for us, that's in a capacity that they do that voluntarily. But ultimately, as you move forward, there's the opportunity to create your own board around a company that can afford that same guidance and the contact lists that many of those people are kind of the more traditional investment firms might have. So I definitely don't think that crowdfunding stops you from gaining those additional benefits. You can be a little bit more selective, in fact, in the advice that you receive, rather than it being enforced upon you from an investment firm. But I definitely think that there's benefits to both. Obviously, traditional investors have a great deal of benefits in the follow-up investment that they can offer you. But I think there's pros and cons, but it's all about how you structure that. Any kind of proactive entrepreneur and business owner can find a way around things, I suppose, to make sure it works.
Okay, all right. I think very pertinent information. Especially, I really liked your answer with regards to choosing advice rather than being it forced upon you. So that brings me nicely to my next question, which is okay. So now that you've decided that you want to crowdfund, say, your product or your service or your own company, now. Could you just give us some high-level steps or overview on how to run a crowdfunding campaign? Now, obviously, you could probably fill in some volumes of books with these steps on how to do a crowdfunding. Yeah, but
I don't know. I wish I had that level of expertise.
go on. From your experience, give us some high-level tips and tips and tricks. I'd like to call it on. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the first thing is to decide where you're going to go, which site that you're going to raise on. I think that's really important, making sure that they have the experience in your sector and they've got the type of investors that you'd be looking for, as well as the traffic that they can help you to really grow the business by getting the investment that you want. That's a really important decision. Have those communications with them regarding due diligence and make sure you go through that really earnestly because it is a long kind of drawn out process. You have to submit a lot of documentation, so make sure you've got that all ready and in place. Once the pitch is kind of ready and you know that you're going to go forward, but I would say way in advance of that, in parallel to even deciding that you're going to crowdfund, you should be approaching potential investors already, setting up those conversations so that you've got a lead angel or a team of angels in place who are happy to kind of support you to get that momentum going. That's really important. I think you see those businesses that just kind of create the pitch, put it up, get going, and then shout about it on social media, and it's a really difficult, long, hard slog if that's the way you go. So you do need to put the legwork alongside the raise. It's not simply a case of putting it up and watching that kind of the numbers come in and you go up on a kind of nice totalizer to your final value. And alongside that, I suppose when the pitch is live, continue to do that outreach work. Go out there, target and identify investors that you'd specifically like to get involved in the business, or people that you feel would be well suited to backing you because of other investments. There's great sites out there like Angel List where you can see investors who have supported other businesses that might be similar to yours, that you can then reach out to those guys. Obviously, LinkedIn's a great tool for that, although I think you need to put in work alongside, so it's not kind of just cold calling people. And then work on the social media aspect of it as well, just to kind of let people know what you're doing. Whilst reaching out with PR, press releases, and talking to as many other sites that cover this kind of thing. There's a lot of them out there that will let people know exactly what you're doing, so you get the most attention and traffic to the pitch as possible.
What is the best advice that you have ever heard and try to follow or implement in your life and your startup, your business, etc.?
Okay, yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to give a lot of credit, and I hate doing this, but I'm going to give a lot of credit to my co-founder, Mark. He always, and I think he's been proven right time and time again, for us, it's about being laser focused on what our ultimate target is. So I'd say I love education. I've been in education for quite a long time now, professionally, and I always have lots of different ideas about, we could do this, we could do that. There's loads of different things I'd love to do and offer people. But I think until we're in a position to be market leader, to have secured the investment we're really seeking, we're entirely focused on helping more and more families and helping more tutors so that we can build what is a really scaled, sustainable business, and then we can offer all of those additional extra benefits. So I suppose we're kind of hopefully going to reach that position in the next 12 months, but I think it is remain laser focused on your target and what will drive your business forward. If it doesn't help to drive a business forward by gaining more users, by building your base, think about whether that's the right thing to do at that given time, because ultimately, if the business isn't moving forward, you just won't have the funding available or the resources at your disposal to do all those extra great things that.
Okay, so I think that's great advice, but I was a little confused as to why you hate giving credit to your co-founder.
Just office banter. I don't like giving him too much credit. No, he's a fantastic guy, and I really delighted to have him as my co-founder. I think we complement each other really nicely. Mark's incredibly astute technically and strategically, so it's great to work alongside him. Happy to give him credit there.
All right. I'm sure he's gonna be happy when he listens to this podcast when it's released. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
If you already mentioned in the introduction that your company is about 18 months old now, when did you actually do your first round of crowdfunding? After how many months did you actually do the first raise?
Yeah, I think we did the first raise probably after about 8 months, something like that. 6 to 8 months of getting going. We'd got a good bit of traction. We'd really quickly grown from into quite a few of the major cities in the UK. But since then, we've grown by over 700%. That was based on our November figure. I think the figure's a lot higher now. So it's really rapidly scaled. I think at that point we were only doing I think we only had about 1,500 tutors on the site now. We're now, I believe, as of this week, we've got over 7,000. So yeah, an incredible.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great to hear. And the fact that you have done your first race 8 months after you started speaks like volumes about your company and the traction it's on. But so probably my next question is going to be a little difficult to answer because you seem to have been doing the right things all along. But if you had to do it all over again, maybe not even at that first race, maybe even now during your second race, if you had to do something all over again, is there anything you feel that you would have done different given the hindsight and the knowledge that you have gained over the past 18 months?
Yeah, I think I'd have set the company up in Hawaii. I think that would have been a much nicer place to do business. No, so on a serious note, I think yeah, every co-founder will have a multitude of failures along the way and things that haven't worked. I mean, I think we've been fairly lucky in making relatively few large mistakes along the way. But I think the things that we've done sometimes, a couple of times, we've released a couple of features that we've instinctively or intuitively thought we're going to add a lot of value to the business. We've spent time and money developing those, and they've not. And I think it's a case of making sure you do your kind of research before you launch out an MVP, and make sure it is an MVP rather than a really fully developed system that if it doesn't work, you've then wasted a good bit of time and money on. So I think we've learned very, very quickly that you need to be really testing the market with an MVP and testing your assumptions to make sure that you're doing the right thing. I think that's all part of a kind of lean startup methodology that I really believe in now.
If you like the show, do follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The link is www.facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. Both these provide you daily tips and articles as well as resources to help and inspire your startup. There are multiple tips per day. Some examples of these tips would be articles on the latest startups, growth hacking tips, how do you build team for startups, how to get funding, etc. So don't forget facebook.com/FoundersGyan and twitter.com/FoundersGyan. Okay, great. All right, excellent. So we just have a couple of more final questions about crowdfunding. How does it actually feel to go through a crowdfunding campaign, whether it's successful or not successful, or through the campaign as a founder? What does it feel like?
Yeah, I think it's a very nervous period. Obviously, you're kind of really excited as well because you hopefully you're going to be in a much better position at the end of it. But I think it's pretty draining to go through a Crowdcube raise or any kind of fundraising with a crowd, because you are doing a lot of legwork outside of the raise, trying to drive more people to the platform. You're constantly clicking refresh to see whether anyone's got involved. But I think it's ultimately a really exciting period because you know that from the effort you put in, it's a real confirmation that the business is on the right track when you see so many people investing. And we've been fortunate once to go through that process. The round closed in just 4 days, but I think in this one, it's probably going to take a little longer because it's a more substantial amount that we're looking for. But hopefully we'll get that same great feeling at the end with the confirmation that, yeah, this is a great solution.
Okay, excellent. So again, I can see that the link to your current raise is crowdcube.com/Tutora. That is Tutora. Now, many of our listeners are in India and in the US. There are a few listeners in the UK, so I'm not sure how much our listeners can actually get involved in the actual raise itself. But I think they can look at what you have done, and they can look at your previous raises through the site. And I think there's so much knowledge to be gained. And currently, I can see that you've already raised about 205,000. That's 58% with about 24 days left. So I think you should. I'm hopeful that you should beat the mark quite easily. So I wish you luck on that. The final question I had, like, with regards to the crowdfunding as such, is what happens once the raise is closed, once you're successful? So what next? What next?
Yeah, so certainly anyone can get involved. You don't have to be in the UK to be able to invest. If you're in India, the US, we'd welcome your support. It'd be great to have an international base of investors. So yeah, just visit the site, crowdcube.com/Tutora if you want to support us. Once the raise is completed and we hit that kind of target figure, it will close. Crowdcube then contacts all the investors to finalize all their details. It takes a few weeks to all go through with all of the paperwork, but then following that, we issue all the share certificates to make sure that the investors have everything they need. And obviously, for tax purposes, some of our investors need certain documentation. We file all that over to them. The investment comes in, and then hopefully we put it to very good use to drive a business forward.
Okay, all right, excellent. Now, are there any books and resources that you can recommend for our budding startups? Are you a reader? Do you read often? What's?
Yeah, I get. No, it's a really interesting question. I get asked this quite a lot, and my kind of view, and it's somewhat of an unusual one, is I try not to read too much. I look at really technical posts that are telling me how to do things, specifically when I need kind of technical guidance. But I try not to read the kind of more broad brushstrokes entrepreneurial books, because in my view, being an entrepreneur, or I hate that word, a founder, is all about trying to do things differently, trying to see gaps and exploit them and make sure that your business is doing what no other business is doing. And I think to be able to do that, I don't want to kind of read what everyone else is doing and then have that influence my thought process. So I try to steer clear of the kind of broader things. I think sites like HubSpot, Mars, those kind of sites on SEO, the kind of technical guidance that they offer are excellent. And then things that are really kind of, I do like Paul Graham. I suppose he's my go-to guy if I do want to do a bit of reading on the side. But aside from that, I try to steer clear of that.
Okay, very, very interesting advice, and certainly one that is very interesting. I think that's great. And anyway, I'll link up those sites, Moz and Paul Graham and the HubSpot sites on the show notes page, so that our listeners can go and take a look at those sites and the technical advice that these sites offer. Now, I just have one final question, and before we go on to that question, so obviously we've already talked about this. So crowdcube.com/Tutora is the way to support your campaign. Tutora.co.uk is the way to learn more about your site and things like that. But if there are any founders out there who are listening to the show and say want to get in touch with you personally to network or bounce ideas or just to have a chat, what is the best way to reach out to you personally? Is it email, LinkedIn,
Yeah, they
Twitter?
can get in touch with me. My email address is just scott@tutora.co.uk. Always happy to hear from other founders out there and potential supporters. But I would say, please, if you're a recruitment agency, please do not contact me. I get so many.
Right. Don't worry, recruitment agencies don't listen to this podcast.
Cool, that's good stuff. No problem.
All right. So we will link up your email also on the show notes page so that interested founders can get in touch with you. So with that, we'll move on to the final question. So this is how I end all my interviews. So I'm not sure if you're aware of the word Gyan, what it means. Are you aware of the word Gyan, what it means?
No, I'm interested to hear more.
Okay,
Go for it.
right. So Gyan is a Sanskrit word that stands for wisdom or knowledge, something like that. So FoundersGyan is basically knowledge from founders. So if there is one Gyan, only one Gyan that you could give our founders, there is only one sentence of wisdom or one piece of advice that you could give our would-be founders, what would that be?
Okay, so yeah, put me on the spot. Okay,
apart from saying support our crowdfunding campaign.
Support our crowdfunding. No, I'm joking. I would say that The one spot for me is I think every business should have an aim, something it's trying to achieve that they think is a really addressable problem in people's lives that you can solve really well. And I kind of imagine that as a circle. And then everything we do as a business should be colouring in that circle. Whatever new feature it is, whatever kind of new system that we're putting in place, whatever new hire it is that we're making, it should be colouring in that circle a little bit more every day. So ultimately, we really do provide that great solution to that specific problem that is important enough to be a business. And I think having that kind of idea is what keeps us going, because there's a bit of that circle we want to fill in. And there's always these kind of overlapping circles and ideas where you can go out and do more, offer a new feature that kind of offers an extra bit of benefit. But I think really, going back to when I said about being laser focused, it's all about kind of solving that problem really, really well and colouring in that circle so you offer the best solution on the market.
So Woody, thank you so much. That's excellent, Gyan, Woody. So thank you so much for your time and your sharing your knowledge with us and our founders and would-be founders. I learned a lot from this. I'm sure there would be some founders listening out there who hopefully can implement the ideas in their own startups and have a successful crowdfunding campaign themselves. So thanks, Woody, once again. And wish you good luck with your company and your crowdfunding campaign also.
No, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me on. I wish all of the founders out there the best of luck with their own businesses.
There you have it, folks. Another interesting startup founder and an interesting topic. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did in putting it together. Do check out foundersgyan.com/EP79 for links to all that we talk about on the show, and foundersgyan.com for past episodes. I'll be back next week with yet another startup and an interesting topic. In the meantime, do take action on your own startup today, and good luck on your startup adventure. Bye for now.